The new 7 Wonders of the World are an international list of the most impressive and meaningful structures of our modern history: the Great Wall of China, Petra in Jordan, Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, as well as Machu Picchu in Peru, Chichen Itza in Mexico, the Colosseum in Rome, and the Taj Mahal in India. And besides these 7 magnificent structures, the list also includes the Great Pyramids of Giza, which received a place of honor on the list. Much about these massive pyramids remains unknown, and how they were built is unclear. There are countless theories, such as the absurd theory that aliens placed it on Earth. But now the mystery could finally be solved. We show you why this simple image could solve the millennium-old secret. What do you think? What does this picture reveal? Number 3. The Great Wall of China. China was home to one of the earliest civilizations in human history. Early Chinese are credited with many revolutionary inventions, including paper and gunpowder. And they laid the foundations of the most extended man-made structure ever built. The Great Wall of China is 21,000 kilometers long and passes through more than 400 towns across northern and central China. However, contrary to the standard view, it is not a single continuous structure. In fact, it is a series of fortifications and bulwarks whose origin can be traced back to the time between the 8th and 5th centuries BC. At the time, China was divided into several smaller states that were constantly at war to expand their territory. With frequent external threats, rulers of these smaller states built high walls to keep out intruders. By the 3rd century BC, the warring states unified under the Qing dynasty, and their emperor set about extending the wall while also connecting some of the existing sections. However, the most famous wall parts were built much later during the Ming dynasty, which came to power in the 14th century, about 1,700 years later. Almost 1/3 of the wall and some of its most vital sections were built during that era to protect against the Mongol tribes. The materials used in the Great Wall's construction differ greatly depending on the terrain the division passed through and the materials available in the surrounding areas. In many places, rammed soil and wood were used, while the most substantial wall sections were built using marble, bricks, and a secret ingredient preserved for many centuries. The secret ingredient is a rather unusual mortar that contains sticky rice. Introduced during the Ming era, it was as firm and waterproof as cement and sealed the bricks so tightly that weeds could not grow between them. Much of the Ming era sections are still strong, even surviving extreme weather events and earthquakes. But building the most extended man-made structure was no easy task. Huge stones and massive bricks often had to be transported to mountain tops and through rugged terrains. Without powerful machinery, laborers could only use their bare hands and often traveled several kilometers, resulting in deaths from hunger and exhaustion. That's why many laborers lost their lives during the wall construction. Today, only rough estimates can be made, and some articles put the number at around 400,000 deaths. The Great Wall of China is a testament to the skill and hard work of the millions of laborers, and many parts of the wall stood the test of time and continue to attract over 10 million visitors yearly. However, this might also become a problem in the future. While innovative mortar solutions and stone blocks have helped preserve the wall, not all of its sections are as well maintained. Over time, adverse weather conditions made 1/3 of the wall disappear. Human activity, including villagers stealing building materials and excess tourists, has also contributed to the wall's decay. Despite some of its sections disappearing, the wall's sheer size has given rise to many popular myths, including the one visible from the moon. However, this myth is incorrect. The claim about its visibility from the moon was first made in the 1930s, and no one had traveled to the moon or even to space then. The first person to set foot on the moon, Neil Armstrong, was also asked about the Great Wall's visibility many times, but while he could see continents, lakes, and bodies of water, no man-made structure was visible from the moon. Next up, we uncover the secrets of a wonder of the world that was abandoned and hidden for centuries. Number 2, Machu Picchu, 2,400 meters above sea level in the Andes Mountains of Peru, lies a mysterious city in a stunning natural landscape once home to 300 to 1,000 residents. Machu Picchu is a historic site of the Inca Empire, which at its peak was the largest empire at the time in America. The city was built in the early 15th century, and its ruins reveal the architectural skills of the Inca civilization. The city's ruins consist of 200 buildings made entirely out of finely carved granite stones fitted together without the use of mortar. They were installed so precisely that not even a piece of paper could be inserted between them. And because of that, the buildings were way more resistant to earthquakes. In an earthquake, the stone walls move slightly and resettle without the building collapsing. Since Peru is a region with high seismic activity, this building method is probably why most of the structures at Machu Picchu are still standing today. But why did they build this city in such a remote location, and why was it abandoned? Many researchers believe the town was created as a royal estate for the Inca emperor and a luxury getaway for the elite, while others have claimed that it was instead the perfect hideout to protect the emperor in case of a foreign invasion. Since the surrounding mountains were considered sacred by the Incas, it also could have been a religious center to honor the landscape. This would also explain why Machu Picchu has multiple temples, including the impressive Temple of the Sun, built with great precision and only the best materials. The actual reason for making Machu Picchu remains unclear. What is known, however, is that the city did not remain inhabited for very long. By 1528, less than 100 years after Machu Picchu was built, the Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire began. Fearing looting and destruction, the residents of Machu Picchu abandoned the city. To protect the city, they burned down the surrounding forests so no more paths could be found leading up the mountain. And their plan worked out. The Spanish invaders never found the city. After the Spanish victory in 1572, many other bigger Inca towns were destroyed. This included Vilcabamba, the last Inca city to fall to the Spanish. But it remained unseen since there was no written record of Machu Picchu and no visible way to access it. More than 3 centuries later, American explorer and historian Hiram Bingham led a small expedition to Cuzco in the hope of discovering the lost city of Vilcabamba. After reaching a small settlement in the peripheries of Cuzco, the explorers asked a local farmer about ancient ruins in the area.
The farmer told them about the extensive ruins high in the mountains, and on July 24, 1911, the explorers hiked the trails on mules to reach the site.
Bingham concluded that this was the lost city of Vilcabamba. However, that was not the case, and the ruins became known as Machu Picchu. More than 100 years after its discovery, Machu Picchu is one of the world's most visited and unique places. For the last wonder of the world that we cover in this video, we go more than 5,000 years back in time when ancient Egypt, one of the most advanced civilizations in history, arose along the Nile River. To this day, humankind admires their culture and advances in almost all areas of life, including math, language, medicine, and architecture. One of their most outstanding achievements, number 1, the Great Pyramid of Giza remains with us and continues to fascinate people worldwide. This colossal structure was built in only 27 years, and initially, it was 146.5 meters tall. It consisted of 2.3 million blocks with an average weight similar to an SUV. Even today, some people believe it was built by aliens, which shows how far they were ahead of their time. The Great Pyramid looked quite different when they built it, as it was covered in smooth white limestone. This shiny encasing concealed the pyramid's core and made it dazzle in the desert sun. The pyramid's tip was covered with gold-plated capstone, giving it an exquisite look visible for many kilometers in every direction. Over time, the shiny casing stones loosened up and were removed to build other monuments like the Cairo Citadel and mosques across the capital. That's why the Great Pyramid of Giza stands 8 meters smaller at 138.5 meters today. But how did the Egyptians do it? Despite the lack of modern tools, how did they manage to quarry, transport, and positioning these massive stones? Most of the blocks were quarried near the pyramid in what is known as the central field. They believed they used wooden sleds to move the blocks through the sand. But when they were dragged through the hot sand, they dug into the sand, which made it very difficult to move. Their simple secret to overcoming this problem was wetting the sand first. This reduced friction and made the sand harder, making it much easier to move the heavy blocks to the construction site. However, the white limestones for the casing of the pyramid had to be transported by boat from Tura, around 10 kilometers to the south. And what is really impressive, the researchers found out that about 8,000 tons of granite stones came from Aswan, located about 900 kilometers south of the Nile. They were used for the king's chamber, and every single block reached a weight of up to 80 tons, approximately the weight of 12 African male elephants. The next challenge was to install these stones perfectly as the construction progressed to greater heights. Over the centuries, scientists have come up with many different theories. Most of the ideas revolve around the use of ramps. Without cranes and other modern building tools, ramps are thought to be the only possible method of transporting the massive stone blocks toward the top of the pyramid. The first theory is that they used a single straight ramp on one side of the pyramid that was raised throughout construction. For such a ramp, the inclination would need to be at a maximum of around 8%, otherwise, it would be too difficult to drag the stones up. However, that leads to the fact that the ramp would extend to about 1.8 kilometers. Building such a ramp would have been a massive project, which might even be a more significant challenge than the pyramid itself. The second and more efficient way would be a ramp outside the pyramid towards the top. The problem with such a ramp is the corners wouldn't be complete until the end of construction. This makes it very difficult to carefully measure the corners' angles, making it almost impossible to ensure that the corners are straight and meet perfectly at the tip. French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin wasn't satisfied with the existing explanations, and in 2003, he presented another theory. After around 7 years of researching and creating these 3D models, he realized that an external ramp would only be practical to construct 1/3 of the pyramid starting from its base. For the remainder of the structure, they could have used internal ramps that go up towards the top in a corkscrew shape. This way, the ramp for the first third would be much smaller, and also, it would be easier to align the corners. And there is even evidence that supports this idea. In the 1980s, the Great Pyramid of Giza was scanned using microgravimetry, which measures the density of objects. At the time, they searched for hidden chambers inside but couldn't find any. In one of their pictures, however, it looks like the internal ramp theory might be an explanation for this lower density spiraling around the pyramid. What you can see are areas in the pyramid with a lower density. This could indicate tunnels that were used to build the pyramid. Unfortunately, these have not yet been able to be examined more closely since no entrances to the tunnels have been discovered. Besides the question of how it was built, there is an interesting fact about who created it. According to a popular myth by Greek historian Herodotus, the Great Pyramid was built by slaves. However, multiple studies have shown that this is most likely not true. Archaeologists have located the remains of villages exclusively made for the thousands of workers who probably came from far away from settlements along the Nile River searching for work. The slave theory was further debunked in 2010 when Egypt displayed newly discovered tombs with a dozen skeletons of pyramid builders. The skeletons were preserved and buried along with jars that once contained beer and bread meant for the workers' afterlife. Egyptians followed the same rituals as their kings and elites, which shows that the workers commanded a lot of respect. It isn't 100% proven how it was built to this day. And perhaps we will never indeed find out. But one thing is sure, ancient Egypt had the resources and knowledge to realize this project in just 27 years, which shows what a remarkable and advanced civilization they were. Do you want us to make a second part about the fascinating stories of the otherworld wonders? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Amazing World.